The chilling echo of 13 seconds still reverberates through the annals of mixed martial arts. A fleeting moment that shattered a decade of dominance, yet paradoxically solidified a legend. It was a loss so profound, so abrupt, that it threatened to overshadow an entire career built on grit, sacrifice, and unparalleled skill. But to understand the weight of those 13 seconds, one must first journey back to the very beginning, to a life forged in the crucible of adversity. José Aldo, a name synonymous with featherweight supremacy, emerged from the humble, sun-baked streets of Manaus, Brazil. As a young boy, he found refuge and purpose within the dusty confines of a local gym, often sleeping on its worn mats, his dreams fueled by the sweat and ambition of fellow fighters. This was the nascent stage of a journey from utter obscurity to undisputed champion, a testament to the human spirit's capacity to transcend circumstance and carve its own destiny. His martial arts odyssey began with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a discipline that instilled in him a foundational understanding of control and leverage. But it was his eventual move to Rio de Janeiro that truly ignited his competitive fire. Under the tutelage of dedicated coaches, Aldo meticulously sculpted a fighting style, characterized by explosive athleticism, devastating low kicks that could cripple an opponent, and lightning-fast reactions that turned defense into offense. His professional debut in 2004 was a harbinger of things to come, marked by early finishes and an aggressive, relentless pursuit of victory. He rapidly accumulated wins across various Brazilian promotions, each fight a stepping stone towards a much grander stage. The world truly began to take notice when Aldo signed with the World Extreme Cage Fighting in 2008, then the premier organization for lighter weight classes. His WEC debut against Alexandre Nogueira was a brutal TKO, a clear statement of intent. Subsequent victories over Jonathan Brookins and Rolando Perez further cemented his rising star status. However, it was the Cub Swanson moment that etched Aldo into the collective consciousness of fight fans globally. An iconic 8-second flying knee knockout delivered with surgical precision showcased not just his raw power, but also a technical prowess that belied his aggressive facade. He wasn't simply a brawler. He was a master technician disguised as a human highlight reel. The opportunity for the WEC Featherweight title finally arrived, pitting Aldo against the formidable Mike Brown, a dominant champion renowned for his strength and grappling. The anticipation was palpable. But what unfolded was a masterclass. Aldo completely overwhelmed Brown, unleashing a torrent of strikes and demonstrating an impenetrable defense that led to a TKO victory. At just 23 years old, José Aldo was a world champion, and an era of unparalleled dominance had begun. His first title defense against Urijah Faber became legendary. Aldo's relentless low kicks systematically dismantled Faber, leaving the legendary fighter barely able to stand. This performance didn't just cement his status, it redefined the art of leg kicking in MMA. When the WEC was absorbed into the UFC, Aldo automatically became the undisputed UFC Featherweight Champion, thrust onto the biggest stage without ever having to earn the belt in the octagon. The challenge now was to prove that his WEC dominance would translate seamlessly to the UFC. He swiftly answered that call. His first UFC title defense against Mark Hominick was a tough, grueling affair, but Aldo's strategic intelligence shone through as he secured a unanimous decision. He followed this with a technical masterpiece against Kenny Florian, demonstrating complete control over an experienced opponent. Then came Chad Mendes in 2012, a defining moment. Aldo defended every takedown attempt with unwavering resolve before unleashing a devastating knee knockout that showcased his comprehensive skill set. For a decade, José Aldo was seemingly invincible, an unbroken streak of victories against the best in the world. He was the king, the undisputed sovereign of the featherweight division. But the sport of MMA was evolving, and unwittingly, a new force was rising, preparing to challenge the very foundations of his reign. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The seemingly impenetrable fortress of José Aldo's reign, built brick by brick through years of relentless dedication and unparalleled skill, was about to face its most formidable challenge. While Aldo had meticulously perfected his craft, the sport itself had begun to transform, ushering in a new generation of fighters who brought not only physical prowess, but also an unprecedented flair for the dramatic. This evolving landscape would soon introduce a charismatic force who would redefine fight promotion and ultimately stand opposite the stoic champion. Conor McGregor, a name that would soon echo across the globe, made his UFC debut in 2013, immediately captivating audiences with his audacious personality and a unique, often provocative approach to the fight game. He wasn't just a fighter, he was a showman, a master of psychological warfare who understood the power of words as much as the power of his fists. McGregor's ascent was meteoric, a whirlwind of knockout victories over Brando, Poirier, and Siver, each performance more emphatic than the last, catapulting him into the #1 contender spot, destined for a collision course with the undisputed king. The announcement of Aldo versus McGregor in 2015 ignited a firestorm of anticipation, setting the stage for what would become the most intense and personal promotional tour in UFC history. McGregor, with his sharp wit and unyielding confidence, launched a relentless barrage of verbal provocations, aiming to dismantle Aldo's legendary composure long before they ever stepped into the octagon. The world watched, mesmerized, as McGregor snatched Aldo's championship belt during a press conference, a symbolic act of disrespect that sent shockwaves through the fighting community. This psychological onslaught, unprecedented in its ferocity, began to chip away at Aldo. The usually calm, reserved champion, known for his quiet intensity, displayed uncharacteristic irritation, a flicker of vulnerability beneath his stoic exterior. The tension built to an almost unbearable crescendo, the world holding its breath, unaware of the impending shock that would redefine the featherweight division. UFC 194, on December 13, 2015, arrived with an almost mythical aura. The most anticipated featherweight fight in history was finally upon them. The opening bell rang, and the atmosphere was electric. Aldo, perhaps fueled by the psychological torment of the preceding months, charged forward with uncharacteristic aggression, seeking to reclaim his dominance. But McGregor, ever the counter-striker, saw the opening. A clean, perfectly timed left-hand connected flush, sending Aldo crashing to the canvas. In a mere 13 seconds, a decade-long reign, a legacy of invincibility, was shattered. The octagon, once Aldo's kingdom, became the site of his most devastating fall. The air hung heavy with disbelief, and a lingering question emerged. What happens to a dominant champion, a king, after such a swift, brutal, and public dethroning? In the aftermath, Aldo, ever the warrior, sought redemption. He returned to the octagon in 2016, facing the formidable Frankie Edgar for the interim title. In a display of his enduring skill and tactical brilliance, Aldo outmaneuvered Edgar, securing a unanimous decision victory and proving to the world, and perhaps to himself, that the fire still burned brightly. His status as undisputed champion was reinstated shortly after, when McGregor vacated the featherweight belt, moving to pursue other challenges. However, the division continued its relentless evolution, and a new generation was not merely knocking at the door, it was bursting through. Max Holloway, a fighter embodying relentless pace and an almost inhuman volume of strikes, emerged as the next challenge. Their first encounter in 2017, in Aldo's home country of Brazil, saw Holloway's persistent pressure overwhelm the legendary champion, leading to a TKO in the third round. A rematch ensued, with a similar outcome, another TKO, signaling the definitive, undeniable end of José Aldo's featherweight reign. The king had fallen not once but twice to the unstoppable tide of a new era. Yet his story was far from over. It was merely entering a new, challenging chapter, one that would test his spirit and redefine his legacy. Despite the definitive end of his featherweight reign, José Aldo, the indomitable spirit, refused to fade into obscurity. He continued to compete at an elite level, demonstrating his enduring skill and competitive fire. Victories against Jeremy Stephens and Renato Moicano showcased flashes of his old brilliance, proving he could still contend with top-tier talent. Yet, the shifting landscape of MMA was undeniable. Losses to emerging stars like Alexander Volkanovski and Petr Yan highlighted the relentless march of time and the division's ever-increasing depth. It was a period of introspection and adaptation, leading to a surprising yet calculated decision. In 2019, Aldo announced his move down to the bantamweight division. This wasn't merely a change of weight class, it was a strategic gamble, a hope for revitalization, a quest for a second wind in a new, challenging territory where his power and speed might translate differently. His journey in the bantamweight division was a testament to his adaptability and unwavering commitment. Aldo engaged in competitive fights, proving he could hang with the best in a division often lauded for its speed and technicality. The pinnacle of his bantamweight tenure arrived when he challenged Petr Yan for the vacant bantamweight belt. Though he ultimately fell short, the fact that he was fighting for a championship in a second weight class, years after his featherweight dominance, underscored his continued elite status. This longevity in a brutal, unforgiving sport is a rare trait, particularly in the lighter weight classes where speed and reflexes are paramount and often diminish with age. Few fighters maintain such a high-level performance for so long, constantly evolving, constantly pushing their physical and mental limits against generations of hungry, younger contenders. Aldo's bantamweight run wasn't just about wins and losses. It was about defying expectations and cementing his place as a true martial arts icon. Aldo's impact on mixed martial arts extends far beyond the statistics of wins and losses, reaching into the very fabric of the sport's technical evolution. He established a standard for the featherweight division, a benchmark against which all future champions would be measured. His defining characteristics, the masterful distance control that kept opponents guessing, the devastating low kicks that systematically dismantled legs and spirits, and an impenetrable takedown defense that frustrated countless wrestlers, became foundational elements of elite MMA strategy. He wasn't merely a fighter. He was a technical innovator. His influence seeped into an entire generation of fighters who studied his movements, replicated his techniques, and sought to emulate his unique blend of power and precision. For years, he represented the pinnacle of a champion's consistency, defending his titles and dominating elite opponents with a rare, almost effortless excellence that belied the immense skill required. The true narrative of José Aldo is not defined by the single, shocking 13-second loss, but by the enduring spirit that allowed him to rise, dominate, and persevere. It is a story of resilience, of a man who, even after the most public and devastating defeat of his career, continued to compete against the best, driven by an unyielding passion for the fight. His historical perspective reveals one of the longest and most dominant reigns in MMA history, a testament to his physical gifts and mental fortitude. José Aldo wasn't just a champion. He defined what it meant to be the best featherweight in the world for over half a decade. His lasting legacy is etched into the annals of MMA history, a legend whose impact transcends the octagon, inspiring countless others to pursue greatness against